Okay, so factoring trinomials is the next topic. Trinomials is just a term that refers to a three-part polynomial, a polynomial with three terms. So let's start with an easy one. X squared plus 8x plus 15. Now when you're factoring a trinomial, you're going to factor it into, basically it's going to look like what you have before you do the FOIL method. You're going to have two sets of parentheses, because it's going to be two things multiplied together. Each set of parentheses is going to have two terms in it. So the x squared, you're going to have to factor that into two things that are going to multiply together to make x squared. So the best way to factor x squared is to make it x and x. The next step is to look at your end term, the 15, and look at what the factors of 15 are. 15 can be divided into 1 times 15, 15 times 1, 3 times 5, or 5 times 3. And so let's start with looking at our middle term before we select the factorization of 15. We have an 8x in the middle. And remember, when you FOIL, the two middle terms, they add together, the inner times inner and last times last, they add together to make that middle term. And so this 3 and 5 actually make a lot of sense because they're going to add together to make that 8. So if we put a 5 here and a 3 here, and they're both pluses, and so let's put some pluses in here. That's our first guess. Let's check it to make sure that it multiplies together to make this 8x squared, the x squared plus 8x plus 15. So x times x, you get x squared. X times 5, you get plus 5x. 3 times x, you get plus 3x. 3 times 5, you get plus 15. Okay, then the 5x and the 3x, they combine, so you get x squared plus 8x plus 15. That is what we started with, and so our factorization here was correct, because all we did was we factored it and then we remultiplied it to make sure that it multiplies together to make what we started with. But let's look at another example. We have 2x squared. We'll call this new example. 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. Now we have a minus. It throws in an extra little where we have to decide on what signs we have in the middle of our parentheses. And we also have a factor in front of our x squared. So we're going to set up our parentheses. 2x squared, we're going to have to factor that, and 2 only has two factors, 1 and 2. So we're going to write 2x, and then we're going to write a 1x, but we don't have to write the 1. So 2x times x makes 2x squared. So that's our first. We're just going to set these in these spots, assign them to those positions. And then the 3 can only factor into a 1 and a 3, or a 3 and a 1. Now we have to decide where those 3 and 1s are going to go. If we put the 3 here and we put a 1 here, we get 3x, we get 2x. But then we notice we have a minus. That means we're going to have one of these terms is going to have to be negative. We can have negative 1 and a positive 3. We can have 1 and negative 3. We can have negative 3 and a positive 1, or 3 and negative 1. Here, I put my 3 in the first position and my 1 here, so let's try a minus there and a plus there. What happens when we do that? We get a 3x, a negative 3x in the middle for our inner times inner. Our outer times outer, we get a positive 2x. But negative 3x plus 2x gives us a negative x for our middle term. Well, we wanted a 5x for our middle term. Even if we switch those signs, we would have a positive 3x and a negative 2x. We would still get a positive x, not our 5x. So that means these were not in the right position. So let's try the other combination. 2x, x. Now instead of having the 3 in the first position, let's put the 3 over here and the 1 here. And then we look at it and we say, okay, well, we have a negative here, so we have to have one of these is negative, one of these is positive. And if I look at my middle term, I have a positive middle term, so I'm going to have the larger term have the positive because I want to end up with a positive in the end. So I'm going to put a positive here and negative here. I have negative 1 times x. That's a negative 1x. And then I have 2x times 3. These are my inner times inner, outer times outer of my FOIL. And so 2x times 3 is a plus 6x. Well, there we have it. Negative 1x plus 6x gives us a positive 5x. Okay, now if we were foiling the whole thing, 2x times x, you get 2x squared. Inner times inner, negative 1 times x, you get a negative 1x. Outer times outer, 2x times 3, 6x. Negative 1 times 3, negative 3. So that gives us 2x squared plus 5x minus 3, which is what we started with. And so that means this was the proper factorization. Now, if you didn't get all of that this first time watching it through, watch that section of video again and follow each step as we go. What we did was a trial and error for this last term. We factored the first term and assigned those positions. We didn't move them again. We took the last term and we said, what is every possible combination of a negative 3? We could have negative 1 times 3. We could have 1 times negative 3. We could have negative 3 times 1. We could have 3 times negative 1. And then we did trial and error to see which ones added up to the middle term.